Can I just go ahead with my piece, and then Sheldon, you can get this worked out and then fit in between the two, in between the models.
Okay.
Okay, so I switch to you, Paula?
Yes, please. Try not to make this painful. Okay, so you guys have already had initial training, and so this is really just a follow-up. We've made some revisions and corrected some things within the model. So we're going to start with what we have called the Own Model tool. So just as a refresher, this is going to be the tool that you would use if you're adding capacity, if you have a new facility going in, or you could also use it to test scenarios with taking links out. Anything where you could actually go in and modify your roadway network and run the travel demand model, this is the tool that you would be using. Okay, so we'll start up here with the start analysis. And once again, this is just a quick kind of step-by-step to let you know what all the tabs are doing. And it does follow along. Once you do this a few times, you're probably not going to have your user's guide right beside you, but this could be that quick kind of refresher card here for you. So if we go in with the parameters page here, once again, what you're going to do is in this set of boxes marked parameters where you have your project name, your model save file, and your REMI and your M-plan save file, and your GIS output. This is really where you're going to be setting up the project. So this is where you're going to name it. So we're just going to do this as SEAT Training August 1. Okay, and then for the model save path, the user's guide takes you through a very detailed step-by-step on what to do, and it has you setting up separate folders for each and every one of these. This is really just a matter of user's preference. So you're going to create a file, a path, just like you would for anything else. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here and I'm going to keep this under my SEAT folder. I'm going to create a new folder for training on August 1st. So this is where I'm going to tell the model to save all of my files associated with this session. So you type it in there, you hit the bar, and you're just going to do a copy and paste. Okay, now this is one of the things that we've put in the user guide, and I'll remind everyone here, is that once you paste it, you need to go in and add another backslash. If you fail to do this, it still saves it, but it just saves it one level up from where you put in here. So it can get a little confusing, and we have found that users have trouble finding their files if we don't add in that step. So, and then I just put all of my files in the same folder so that I'll have all of my files associated with this within a single folder, okay? So this is just telling it the project name, and these are the save paths for when these files are generated. They will be saved to these locations here, okay? Once again, this is one of those pages where you need to scroll down. Just another little helpful hint, and we have included this in the user's guide, is that you want to make sure that you use these scroll bars because most of these sheets extend far beyond what you're actually able to view on the screen. So just a rule of thumb here, anything in the orange throughout the spreadsheet here, or this kind of peach color, is indicative of a drop-down box. So that means that there's a selection that you need to make here, okay? So here you have the opportunity whenever you're looking at the wage rates, which will be used in the calculation of the value of time. You can choose either county level or you can choose state average. So we'll use county level here. Everything else down here are just the assumptions and the value. And we do have, again, the unit, the mode, and then the source and any directions that are there. Okay. Again, there's more detailed information. What's the information that is provided in the in F, column F, there's more detailed information on those comments within the methodology report that was delivered at the end of last year. So the next set of boxes, if it's in blue, that just means there's really nothing that you have to do there. It's just some assumptions that are being used throughout the analysis here. Okay. So then we get down to the simulation options. This is where you have to select for each parameter, okay? So this is really where the user is going to set up the parameters that are going to drive the analysis within the tool, okay? So choose between RMI or M-Plan. We have, as to my knowledge, we have 4 RMI states, and that's Louisiana, Georgia, Mississippi, and Florida. And then the rest are going to be M-Plan states, although some have neither model. And so if you do not currently have an economic model, or in the case of Eric Johnson, if you're on, I know you guys are using Tretis. That's also a county level model. We set everything else up as county level. Okay, so for this example, I'm going to be using Mississippi data. I actually sent them a RMI file earlier or last week, and they were able to run it within their tool and send me the output back. So we'll be able
Paula,
to. Yes.
If you're like Eric using Tretis, and it says choose RMI or M-Plan, which one should we choose?
You really should use M-Plan because that'll give you the county level. I know in Missouri we're actually using M-Plan on the port study. So
yeah, I was just verifying because we're using Tretis for some other stuff. We've purchased.
Oh, okay.
I'm just checking. Thank you.
Right, right. So with the Tretis, Cheryl, Tretis already has a front end that's doing a lot of what this is doing, and then it plugs into M-Plan. So Tretis model already kind of has all of this together. So so I think that this is something that can allow you to go in, and if you want to do like a quick benefit cost. But in working with Tretis, we don't have the macro to be able. Tretis doesn't open up to let you be able to just import that into the economic component of it. So happy to talk with you about that in more detail. Eric and I've had a few conversations on it.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. And so then here's the choose between you can either choose regions or counties. A lot of the RMI models have multiple counties together in a RMI region, so that's the reason it says regions or counties. Or you can use a state total. And I know for Louisiana, for example, their RMI model is just one statewide, so their whole state is a single region, and so they would use the statewide totals. Okay. So, and then we're going to use, this is the drop-down menu of the state, and so we're going to use Mississippi, and then we're going to go down and we're going to continue to look at the data that's here. For the travel demand model base year, I believe we have a 2013. The forecast year is 2040. You can put in an interim year. So there's going to be a date here, but if you don't have interim year data, then actually down here is where you tell it if you're actually going to use the interim year data or not. And we will get to that. This right here, are we going to use that? So here we're going to select no. So it'll still show a year in that drop-down box, but we're not actually going to use it in the calculation. Okay. The starting year analysis, we'll keep that set at 2020. You can start this really at any year for which any year beyond what the travel demand base year is. The end of the analysis year is 2040. So here you have a construction start year and a construction end year, and then you have an opening year of infrastructure. And then this is your RMI base year. All right, we've already said that no, we're not going to be using the interim year. And then for the use daily or the time of day, this is going to depend upon your travel demand model. It's going to dictate what you provide in here. If you have an average annual daily model, then you're going to use daily. If you have a model that gives you peak and non-peak travel, then you're going to use the peak and off-peak. Okay, so for Mississippi, that's a daily model. Okay, and then here's the estimate fatality impacts, which is really putting an estimate on the change in the fatalities. And so you can toggle that on for yes or no. If you're using this for federal grant purposes, you want to choose yes. And then here's user-defined or the default crash rates, and so we're going to leave that at the default. And then if you do use the user-defined, then this is where you would enter those user-defined here. And this comes in handy since we're doing a statewide analysis. We're just using the default for the statewide crash rates. But if you're doing an analysis on a specific facility and you have facility-specific crash rates, that's really when you would want to use override the default and do the user-defined. Okay. And then for emissions, include the federal emission standards, which is really the greenhouse gas. Normally, you're going to include this only for your federal grants. You can include it. There's nothing saying that you can't, but given the global nature, typically a lot of states will not include this in their state-specific benefit cost analysis. But we can leave it toggled on for now. So once you have all of those filled in, you then need to go back and confirm the selection. So it will take a few minutes once you confirm selection for this to set everything up. So we'll go ahead and hit that, and then this will give us time to pause for any questions or comments from anyone.
Paula, this is Bruce.
Yes.
So basically, I'm following along with the user's guide, and it's very helpful, by the way. So my compliments to you. And so basically, where would they put the shift stuff in? Is that in a separate module, or?
That's going to be in the very next step.
Oh, well, I'm glad that I was able to queue you up. Okay, sorry.
Right. No, that's fine. So again, and I've been really abusing my laptop here, so it's running a little slow. It's gotten angry at me trying to run so many large files lately, so, and being turned on nonstop. So you can see that it's still working here. And what it's basically doing is it's telling what sheets need to be made visible within here, because there's a lot of hidden sheets, and then it's also populating with the Mississippi-specific data, such as their regions and everything, okay? But it looks like it's finished now, so then we can proceed to step 2, okay? So this is where we're going to enter the travel demand data. Now, this doesn't look like it's supposed to, so you might freak out, but don't forget that I told you to look at these slider bars here. And so what we need to do is just make sure that we're up here all the way over when you get onto this page. Otherwise, you might get over here and you might see over here and you're like, well, wait a minute, it didn't populate with my regions or anything. So if you see that, even though it looks like it's all the way in the corner, some of these tables are so large that it goes a long way, so because they have to accommodate county level too, and some of our states have a lot of counties. So just make sure that you're all the way over here in the corner lined up with this one when you get onto this sheet, okay? So this is where you're going to enter your travel demand modeling output, okay? So once again, if you're using the shift model, this is where that shift model data would go. But as I said, we are using some Mississippi data, so we're going to go back in here and pull up the input for the Mississippi data. So, and once again, these input sheets are this. Okay, so here what we're going to do, this is my input data, and you'll notice that this sheet looks just like the sheet from the tool itself. Okay. So what we're going to do is here we're going to pull the data from the No Build 2013. So you're going to take this all the way across, make sure that you're capturing all of the regions. And then you're just going to do a simple copy and paste. And once again, you want to make sure we got the No Build 2013, that you're putting the right data in the right place. Okay. We said we were not going to use the interim year data, so the next group of data that we need is going to be the No Build 2040 and the Build 2013. Okay. So we can pull the no build 2040, and since the build 2013 is right here below it, we're going to go ahead and pull that data as well, so that just reduces one extra cut and paste activity. Again, making sure that we're starting with region 1 and that it's going in and making sure, and then there's our build 2013. And so then finally, we need to go back and grab the build 2040 data. Okay. All right. So just to do I'd like to do just a quick check here that we've got our data in. It looks like we've got our data where it's supposed to be. Okay. Once this is in, you click here to calculate the benefits. And once again, this is starting to populate all of those other sheets, all of the step 2C, the step 3A, 3B, and 3C. So it's going to take a while, and you'll see right down here where it says calculating, and it'll give you kind of a percentage that'll tell you how you're progressing. Of course, if you have a super performing machine, it's not going to take as long. But if you're working off from a Microsoft Surface, you're probably not going to run this spreadsheet. Any questions on the entering of the data? Okay. All right. So this then, once the calculation is done, it automatically advances you to this annualized travel demand. And so here, what you'll see here is you'll see your no build. This is the data that it has. This is the region, and here are the years of the data. And you'll have the auto leisure, auto commute, auto business, and the truck data down through there. And then you're going to have the build for the same county, and then you're going to have the difference. So this becomes a very large spreadsheet in here. And if you have the interim year in there, then that means that you're going to have the no build and the build, and you're going to have what the interim year data does. You notice we entered 2 years of data, but now we have annualized data. So what it's done, what the spreadsheet is doing is it's just interpolating between your base year and your build year to give you annualized data. And then if you have that interim year, what it does is it interpolates between the base year and the interim year and uses that average annual change to fill in the annual, and then it would interpolate between your interim year and your final year, and that may or may not give you a different kind of average annual change to do those interpolations. Okay, so you're just going to look down through there, and you'll see this is really the sheet from which all the other calculations are then based. Okay. Now, a careful thing to note here is that if you get over here, you'll notice that there are things in these columns and everything. You want to make sure that you don't go in and do a clean delete on any of this stuff, because a lot of it has stuff that we've hidden away in those cells that are used within the macros or within some of the formulas, and they're used for references and everything to make sure that things line up properly. So if you go in and you delete anything from the sheet, there is the potential that you're going to mess up some of the formulas.
So, Paula, you're challenging everybody now to mess up all the Excel charts?
No, I'm just warning. One thing that we do recommend is that you do keep a clean version of the tool and protect it, password protect it, just so that you can always, if something does get messed up, you can go back to that protected version. All right, and so then the next few tabs really are just there to kind of show you the overall calculation, and it does allow you, these are really there to kind of go in and start to do any sort of QA/QC or troubleshooting. If you get to the end and there's one of your benefit streams just doesn't seem right, this provides you all the detail to go back and dig underneath it. And then here's the emissions. And I know that when we did our training in Savannah, we had some issues with the emissions. They weren't calculating correctly, but that's all been corrected now. And then here's the user costs. And so you can see here, we're still keeping everything separated based upon the trip type, whether it's business, commute, leisure, or truck. But you can see all of the kind of intermediate data. We wanted this to be as transparent as possible. So this is in the sheet that really feeds into the benefit cost analysis, so we can go into there. So for the benefit costs here, you have all of your benefits in here. What you don't have yet are your costs. And so this is where you would need to go in and enter some costs. So I have made up some costs. I don't remember where I put those. Okay, well, we're going to enter some costs in here. I thought I had preloaded some costs, but no. Oh, one other thing up here too is your toggle switch for your discount rate. So you can toggle it between 3% and 7%. And so the reason that we're doing this because once again with the federal grants you're required to use 7, but you're permitted to also present it with 3%. And so by doing this, you could go through the steps and do everything. And then get your information that you need, and then by hitting a single toggle and letting it recalculate, it would give you the other version of it. So. I think it's going to make you guys spend a little bit more money than that. And then we'll just carry the O&M cost out to the end of the forecast period. Okay, so let's see what this gives us now. So if we go down through here are your undiscounted benefits. So this is really taking it straight from the spreadsheet. So you can see your safety. We included the statistical life. You have injuries. You have property damage only. Here are your emissions for your autos and your emissions for your truck. We singled those out since this was having a focus on freight. And then you also have your fuel costs and your vehicle operating costs, and then your value of time. And so then when you get down to the results, you have your undiscounted costs and your undiscounted benefits, and then we actually discount these. So obviously, I didn't put in enough cost up there because we're getting a benefit cost ratio of 358.3 to 1. And so what this is telling you when it shows up in red like this is that there's an error there, that's just really outside of the normal range. Or maybe I'll put in too much cost. Nope, that made it worse. So anyway, I don't have enough cost in there, but you can see that we did put some fail-safes in there. And if you start to get into really like above 13 to 1, that's when we start to put in the error message there. Okay. So then we can proceed to summary, and we've revamped kind of the look of these a little bit and the ordering of it. So the table A is just the analysis parameter summary, and this just kind of reminds you of what you've actually used in there as some of your key parameters and assumptions. And then this is the discounted benefits by your region or your county. So this is going to be based upon the makeup of your REMI model, so that you can get that kind of geographic. And then this is the total, the benefit cost results here. And you'll notice here that because we do have an arrow in that it's showing up as 0. So it's not going to report it as long as you're showing an arrow over here. Okay, and then here we actually single out the safety and the environmental benefits into its own table as well. Okay. So once you've reviewed that, you can then go to step 4. And this, again, this is where you start setting up. In this case, this is setting up for REMI, for the M-Plan users. This would be setting up for M-Plan. And you can see where the data has been populated over here. And here, remember, we said we wanted to start the analysis in year 2020. So this is only going to show data starting in 2020. Okay. So then you can proceed to step 5. And then step 5 is just the same input, but this is for trucks. So once again, we've separated out the input for autos and the input for trucks so that you can take a look at that and troubleshoot it. Once it goes into the REMI model, it starts to get combined for that. So then we can proceed to step A, and this is where you're actually going to create your sheet for your input to the REMI model. Okay. So you're going to run your saving macro here, and this will take a couple of minutes. So a couple of things are happening here. You're saving the input sheet, but you're also saving this model under a new name in those file locations that you identified in the very beginning. And you'll notice up at the top here, mine's saying that's not responding. It is. It's just working. So, okay. So what's happened now is that the model closed. So the only thing that you're seeing here was that initial travel demand model input sheet. We don't need that anymore, so we can close that out. And so what you need to do now is you can go back in and go back to the folder where you told it to save everything, and there's your model. So it's saved as the FEAT training August 1, so it picked up the project name that I put in there, and then this is your REMI input sheet. So you can go ahead and open your model up again, because we're going to use that again once we run the economic model. While that's opening, we'll also go ahead and open up your REMI input file. It's just going to be a text file, and it's going to look like this. Okay. So your next step then would be to go to your economic model, and I do have a Transite Mississippi model here. It lets me upload the file, but my code has expired, so I can't actually run the model, and we don't need to sit here while the model runs, but I do have an output file, so I can show you what it is. So here with opening up REMI, we're going to do a standard, we're just going to do a regional simulation. So you click on that. Here is where you give it, you can give it the name, so it can be FEAT training August 1. I try to keep whatever I've named my project in my FEAT tool the same as what I named my project here within the within the REMI model. And here is just where you pick your years that you're going to run it from. So we said 2040 was going to be our forecast year. Then the only thing that you have to do is go to this import button. And so we're going to want to go back to that location where we told the feed tool to actually save the input file, and then we're going to just click that on and hit open. Oh, forgot. Mississippi, you guys have a little fix on yours. Georgia, you do not have to do this, but I've worked with REMI to try to get an automated fix, and they actually just suggested a manual fix to this. So for Mississippi, and I did put this in the user guide, when this prints the file, it's printing too many lines because we had to create the file to print enough lines to pick up the state with the most number of regions. And so that means that you guys have extra lines in your file, and your version of model doesn't know what to do with those extra lines. So you have to actually go into this text file and just go all the way down and just delete those lines. Okay, so then once you do that, you can save it. So you didn't delete your data, you just deleted some blank lines. Okay. So now,
Paul, that was done for us whenever you sent that original input file to load?
yes.
Okay.
I'm still working with REMI to see if we can't come up with something we can plug into the macro that would be more of a loop that would tell it when to stop so that we don't have to do that manual switch. And if they can come up with something down the road, then that can be added to the macro for your specific sheet. But you're the state that it impacts. He did send me something else, but we tried that and it didn't work. So the macro itself got stuck. So okay. So once all of your variables are in, once that file is loaded, if you're a REMI user, then you're going to get something that looks like this. Okay. So basically, what this is telling you is these are the variables that are now being changed within the REMI model. So you had data in all of these different. So you have your production costs, your consumer spending, and then those different variables. From here, you would hit run. I don't have the code. It would take about 10 minutes or so for it to run. So we're just gonna once you run this, it then pops up a results screen, and you're just going to go up to the upper corner, and there will be an export, and you want to export all tables. And when you export all tables, you will then get a file that looks like this. Okay. So what you're going to do for your REMI users, you're going to go up here, and you're just going to copy. Go back to your feed tool, which we've reopened. You're going to go to step B, and then you're going to paste that right in there. And if you don't like the look of it, you can go to Paste Special and just use sourcing theme, and then it'll make it look just like it did coming out of REMI. Okay. Then you hit that button, and then this is one of the additions where we have the summary, where it summarizes all the information in the REMI table. Okay. So once again, this gives you the summary parameters that you've used, and then these are your summary impact results over here. Okay. And then for those of you that are using ArcGIS, you can use create the GIS file, and then you have the files here for that. And then there's step-through instructions on how to do that. And the other thing that you'll note is, once again, your spreadsheet up here, it's retained the name of your project. So that means that your clean spreadsheet is still where you had it saved. And so when you save this one, it will be saved specific for this scenario that you ran. Okay. So questions or comments? All right. If not, then Sheldon, are you ready to go now?
I think I should be ready now. I just disconnected the extra screen.
And I think just these folks have already had training on the shift model and everything, so we really don't need to spend time going through the shift model, because they've already have had that and have worked with it. So.
Okay.
Hey, Sheldon, I'm giving you the presenting right now.
Okay. So is everybody seeing it now?
Perfect.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so I went through, as Paula said, you have gotten training on the shift model. We use the shift model. We have a 2014 and a 2040. We have a 2014 base year, a 2040 forecast year, and we have the networks located at these locations. I set up this folder. You can change the folder structure according to your local environment, and so we use those as the base on the forecast year. So the attributes, I think I need to at least just briefly go through what we have from the perspective of developing the script. We have the length, which we need for VMT, and then we have the truck flow and the auto flow, and then we have the state code and the county code, which is needed for us to report by county, if for the states that report by county. And this is just a screenshot of the attributes in the network. Then what we noticed was that the shift network that we need to get delay, we also need the free flow speed, which wasn't available on the shift network, but it was available on the LATTS network, which is pretty much the same as the shift network. So we ended up joining the attributes to get to the shift network to get the free flow speed. And then this is just an example of for Georgia, the REMI regions, for the latest REMI regions for 2016. So we report by these regions for Georgia. For Mississippi, we use a table instead that has a crosswalk between the region and the corresponding counties. And we use that to populate the attributes on the shift network for region. Then we set up the script files. We have several script files for each state. It's 9 states that we compile results for each one. So we have one script each for the base year and for 2040. So that's about 18 script files. And this just shows, this is just a screenshot of the locations. So then we go into Transcad itself to be able to run the script. We open up Transcad, you go to the tools on the menu, and then you go to the GIS Developers Kit, and this toolbox will pop up. And the first icon on the left compiles the script that we developed. And once the script is compiled, then we go to the next icon, which shows the 3 arrows pointing to the right, and that runs the script that was developed. And as mentioned before, for Georgia and Mississippi, we report by REMI region. For most of the remaining states, we report by county. And as Paula mentioned, for Louisiana, the REMI is a statewide REMI, so we report by statewide for Louisiana. So we compile the script, as mentioned, and then we run the script. And to run the script, we use this we use the command that summarize outputs in the box that will pop up when you click that run command. That was what was the 3 arrows pointing to the right. And then when you press OK, if you have files open, you might get a prompt to save your file or not. And that is, it's up to you to determine if it's important enough for the work that you have up to be saved or not. So you run that, and then the script then gets run, and we get the outputs are a series of data DBF files that consist of rows that have the region that is being reported, and then the VMT, the VHT, and the delay of VHD for each region. And then the auto trips are further divided into the commute, leisure, and business. And then the shift model reports trucks separately. So we just pull those numbers separately. And the output files are located under this folder structure. This will be when we provide the user guide, we'll definitely specify where the files are located for you to access the input, for you to access an input to the spreadsheet. And this is for the forecast year. That was the previous slide was for the base year. Then for the economic input sheet, as Paula mentioned, we need a build and a no build for the base year, and a build and a no build for the forecast year. And as mentioned, we have a script file for each combination. And so what we do the highlighted the area shown in the box are just that's just the path for the various model input files. And if you decide to run a different scenario and name your file differently, then you would necessarily have to change the file name to match what you use for that particular scenario. And then this is just an example of the output DBF file with the region and as the rows going down. And this was for Georgia. This example was for Georgia. And then going across for the columns of the VMT, delay, VHT, and truck by leisure, commute, business, and trucks. Then we take that output DBF file, those output DBF files, I should say, and then we populate the sheet that Paula was referring to that's used in the feat tool. So you'll see the format looks similar. the tool has, in addition to the main tab that shows all the comparisons, we use four additional tabs to enter and format the input to match.
Hey, Sheldon, this is Paula. I have a question.
Yes.
So, in this is again, kind of assuming not being a modeler. This was as long as I have those DBF files and the blank input sheet in the same folder. Do I just open up the blank input sheet and hit that populate button, and then it automatically pulls the data from the DBF file?
Not in this iteration. You would have to populate you'd have to copy the DBF file into those tabs.
Okay, but it's already in the format, so it's a copy and paste.
Right, correct. I mean, I didn't have the time to set up that automated input process, but in time for this presentation. It's a copy and paste process, and yeah, that would streamline things even further.
Okay. But the statewide scripts, so you also developed a similar script for use with the statewide models if the states are using their own travel demand model. Were those scripts set up to automate the population? Or
yes, those were set up to automate the population. Yes. So, yes. So that's, so we have these tabs, and then, and as I was just mentioning, Paula, you just basically copy and paste the DBF information into those tabs, and it will automatically then populate the main sheet in the correct format and order. And this was just an example of the different reporting geographies for the different states, but just some examples for Arkansas by county, for Georgia and Mississippi. For Georgia, for Mississippi by Remy, and for Georgia by Remy. And then just some notes on this shift network, which I won't get into since we have already covered that.
And for those people, all the shift training materials are all on the ITTS website. So, okay. And if you want more information, I can send that information to you as well.
Okay. And then, as Paula was just asking about, we also did similar work for states that have their own statewide models, and so we developed scripts for those. For six of the states have their statewide models mentioned here, and 3 of them use Transcad. 3 use Cube, which are different modeling application platforms, and so the methodology is a bit different between the two to produce the scripts. The output DBF files, but once you get to the sheet section, as Paula was asking, we have a button that automatically inputs the files and formats them in the correct order. And then just some conclusions on the shift model. So yeah, that's what I have. Any questions?
Yeah, the scripts for the individual models for the states, where are they located? So I see the scripts shift.
I guess we can. They were uploaded maybe a few months ago. We can forward forward that location to you guys. But
hey, Sheldon, can you just put them on the same Ignite site where we put this material, and let that be our common?
Okay. Okay, we'll do. So we'll put all of those scripts in the same location with correctly named, so that you can determine which ones are from the shift and which ones are for each statewide application.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Any other questions?
No, Sheldon, are you going to, is this PowerPoint, are you going to share this with us as well?
Yes, this PowerPoint actually is on the shared location. I can forward the exact.
Well, no, the reason being is I just looked at the Word file. I didn't spend a lot of time looking at everything else. That's my fault.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's shared, and I can email it as well. It's not too big,
okay.
So yes.
Okay, and of course, if you start to use your individual script or even the shift script, and if you run across any issues or concerns, just send us an email and we'll address those with you. Sheldon will. I will not, because it's just
I like how you don't just say Sheldon can do the work. That's good. Nice call.
Well, no, I mean, on this he has to. It's out of my hands. I don't know how to do that part of it. So.
Okay. Anything else?
No, do I turn the meeting back over to you, Paula?
Yes, please.
Okay, so I have another call that I have to participate in, so I'm going to drop off for now.
Okay, thank you, Sheldon.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so you guys should be seeing the Feed Ops tool, which is for the operational improvement. So once again, you did get a preview of this in Savannah, but we've made some revisions and corrections to it. So the use of this tool is really for those types of operational projects that really the travel demand model isn't detailed enough to really pick up the implications of those. Within the user guide, there's actually a list of projects that are there. This is much more of a sketch level planning tool because of the wide variety of different impacts or scopes that these types of projects could be. Oftentimes, they are the projects where if you're doing a major project like a major interchange reconstruction, you're actually going to do a very detailed simulation model that simulates traffic flow and everything. This is not meant in any way to replace that, but you would use this much earlier in the process just to see what the potential benefits and costs might be. Okay, so do want to make that disclaimer that this is much more of a sketch level because we do have to make some simplifying assumptions with this, given just the wide variety of potential projects in scopes that could be included. Okay, so to start the analysis, starts very much like the own model tool. We do have kind of a quick reference guide here. We did again include the notes that all user selection fields indicated by cells in the orange are dropped down, and then user required inputs are highlighted in green. So we can go to that. So again, the user inputs, you're going to set this up the same way that you do the own model tool. So I'm going to just name the project here. I'm going to go to my folder, select where I'm going to put it, and put this in the same location. And then this has the same requirement that you need to add that extra backslash at the end. Okay, so once again, you come down through here and you want to use county or state wage standards. So we're going to continue to use county on this. You can choose between your economic impact models, whether that be a REMI or M-Plan, and then you can choose the state. So let's use Georgia as an example here. Here you choose your discount rate here, and we have the drop-down menu. of 3 or 7, your starting year analysis, and again, the drop-down menu, so you could pick any of these. So let's say we're going to be looking for projects for next year, your end of analysis year, and then the base year of REMI. And then once again, you can choose to include the fatality, the value of the statistical value of life or not. Okay, so those are all the selections that you have to make, and then from that you can proceed to step 2. So with step 2, this will let you evaluate individual projects, or you can evaluate a whole package of projects all together, which can come in handy if you're looking at trying to do an evaluation of your STIP. So some of your STIP projects you would model through your travel demand model, but then some of them would be of the type that you wouldn't model, but you could come in and do a whole package at one time if you're not needing to see the impacts of necessarily individual projects. However, this does allow you to do that. So let's say if we do 2 projects here. So we're going to do 2 projects, and you can confirm those projects. Okay. So your project numbers are going to be 1 and 2. So your project names, you might want to use, if you have a specific code within your SIP or your project number or your name there, you could always use that. We're going to be real easy here and call projects A and B. And then you have a drop-down menu. And so here you can look at the types of projects that we're talking about here. So let's say we're going to do an innovative intersection. The project motivation, for the ops tool, we use both operations and safety. So you can do the both together. You can do them separately. We're going to say that this is going to be both operational and safety. And then the county or region, why not? Let's just give add another one of these. They've been doing well with them, right, Tom? Okay, and then the only other data that you have to have as a user here is your average annual daily traffic through here. So let's just say this is a busy one. That's why we want to do it, okay? And then project B, it could be, we're just going to do some signal timing changes here. And then this one's just going to be for operations only. And we're going to do this, so let's pick another in the coastal region. And for this particular, let's say we have 7,500, okay? So there's all the data that you need to put in, and then you can do the calculate and proceed to step 3. And again, down here, your status bar will kind of show you the processing that's going on. And of course, the more projects that you're going to analyze at a single time, the more time this will take. But then what it does is it populates the project detail. You do get individual detail. You get the detail for each project. So even if you're doing a batch of projects, you still have the capability to do a batch and get this report for each individual project. Okay, so here is another place where you can go in and override some of the default values here. And this is a case where you may actually have better data than what are currently included within the assumptions. So for example, your average annual daily traffic growth. So we use an average of 1% as the default, but if you know that this is in a high growth area, you could override that and say it's going to be 2%. Okay, and then you'll notice when you use a user override, it'll tell you that it changes the value that was used too. The average truck volume, the default is 10%, but if you know this is a high truck corridor, then maybe that's going to be 22%. Okay, and then it changes. The level of improvement, this is considered to be a major improvement because, again, this is one of those innovative interchanges, the continuous flow. And then here's where you may actually have more detailed data. If you have done like an interchange justification report or any sort of analysis where you've actually done some traffic projections and you have better information than this, then by all means you can go in and change that. So maybe the no-build level of service, if that's an F, it may be fine. But if you have specific information on the delay per vehicle, then you can change that. And let's say here we're saying it's 55 seconds, but let's say really it's only 45 seconds is what's been estimated. So you can go in and change that. The other thing that this allows you to do is to do some sensitivity analysis too. So if you're trying to find, you know, how bad would delay have to be in order for this to be a good investment, you could go in and kind of use different delay values here. Okay, here's another thing too that's set up in here are the percent of leisure trips, the percent of auto commute trips, and the percent of business trips. Again, this varies by state, and since we were doing this for all of the states, we use some averages that are out there. But if you have better information, you may want to go in and change this. So particularly in your high tourist areas, you're probably going to have a much higher percentage that are leisure trips as opposed to business or commute trips. If you're in the downtown, if the project is in the downtown region where you have a lot of commute traffic in and out, then you may have a higher percentage of commute trips or business trips. Okay. But then over here, this is just giving you what the actual annual value of time savings are, and then the annual safety savings. So once again, you'll see that it gives you the start year and then the forecast year, and it gives you the same information down here. So then you can proceed to the summary report after you've made the changes that need to be made. And so then this is where in the summary report, this is where it's going to aggregate all the projects together. One of the things that I forgot to do, I'm bad about this, is once you set this, you have to hit your confirm selection. Because what that does, it then populates the rest of these folders. So since Georgia is a REMI state, then it's going to populate with the REMI tab. If you're an M-Plan state, it would then populate with your M-Plan tab. Okay. So now we can proceed to 4, which is your REMI input. We can run the saving macro here. So as soon as you run that macro, you'll notice that the name of your model up here changes, or your file. Okay. And then if we go back to the files where we told it to save, you can see here that we have the REMI input file that is saved here. And so then you would open REMI and proceed to run REMI. And then once the REMI has ran, you would come back. This is supposed to be, it's taking a little while to close out. You would reopen your file and then paste in your REMI results, and it runs just like the own model tool from there.
Paula, this is where we need to remove the lines too.
Yes. Yeah, so for right now, Tron, anytime that you guys are creating a REMI input file, you need to go in and open that text file and remove those additional lines.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so you can see that it closed, but it did save it right here. Okay. So any questions or comments on the ops tool? It's really straightforward. It was developed to use the minimum amount of user input. But once again, the trade-off of that is that it is sketch level. Right. Questions?
No, I was just trying to thank Paula about, I know for myself, I'm going to go through these files so that when the next session comes around, I'll be a little more questions to ask for you. But for everybody, but just to clarify, all the materials that we've released earlier are all online. The methodology didn't change. We now have an updated Excel spreadsheet. So basically, I'm going to work with you and make sure we put everything into one folder so it'll be clean for everybody. And I'll resend that link to everybody before the next call later this week.
Okay. All right. So then that brings us to the feet rail tool. Again, this is a very sketch level tool, given the resources and everything, we told you from the beginning we'd be pulling from previous work to do a sketch level. Anytime that this is really kind of that first, does this project pass the sniff test type evaluation. Any of you that have been involved in evaluating freight rail projects know that it can be a very complicated process once you start to get into more of the due diligence type evaluation. But I think this does do some really interesting things for you guys. So first of all, we're going to start the analysis. And here you'll notice that the same setup, if it's in Peach, it's a drop-down menu for you, okay? So very simple. You'll see that we have, showing here four different tabs beyond the Welcome tab. There are a lot of hidden tabs underneath that, and that may actually be, some of the data where you want to get in and start to take a look at. But we focused on 3 types of projects based on some of our earlier kickoff calls and meetings and everything. And so we focused on a new intermodal yard, a track upgrade to 286,000 pounds, and then double tracking, which is really, double tracking could also be used for siding. It's just that the potential for truck-to-rail diversion may be different for a siding. So double tracking is really for any time that you're adding additional capacity, could be used to simulate that. So the user is going to select the project type that we have here. So let's say we're doing a track upgrade to 286K. The default for that is that the potential for truck-to-rail diversion from a track upgrade is low. However, you do have the opportunity as a user, if you know for this particular region and there's a particular user that's going to be shifting a lot of traffic and all, and if you have better information than that, then you can go in and change that value right there, okay? What we have behind this sheet, I'll just unhide this sheet here, is that we actually have a diversion potential sheet, and this is where we have taken data from the freight analysis framework, and we actually have a very high-level national model that we use to look at truck-to-rail diversion to kind of give us that first slice of the pie, which is the universe of traffic that could potentially divert. And so it really does go by the distance and the commodity. So this is what this is doing is it is using some high-level filters or screens based upon distance and commodity type. And so all of this data is behind there, and this is what's working whenever and you can see here, a lot of alcohol travels, a lot of beer trains out there, folks. If you ever want to jump a train, make sure you get the right one. And we have chemicals and coal, some of your more traditional kind of rail products that we're seeing. And so you can go down through there and look at all the different commodity classifications and all. And all of these have different kind of probabilities for diversion. Okay? But that's all the data, and we ran this national network outside of this tool, and we just imported the results of that. Okay, so this looks really simplified, and it is simplified compared to more of the detailed analysis that you would do. But that's not to say that there's not some robust calculations behind it. Okay, so we'll do track upgrades, and it's a low, we'll say that's a low truck-to-rail diversion. We can choose the state. So once again, we can choose Georgia for this. The discount rate, you have your 3 or your 7%, so a 3% your analysis year. This would be done in 2019. We'll run it to 2040. Not really interested in the statistical life. This is for state resources, and we're not going to do the CO2. And then here's the growth rate too. So, and this is your freight annual growth rate. So most of you have, especially since you're complete and you have recently completed, or you are in the process of completing your state freight plans, you're going to have information on this specific to your state, so you can always change this. And if you know that this is going to be in a particular region, then you can even get regionally specific with that. Okay, and then just some of the other kind of assumptions that are down through there. Okay, so from here, once you collect that, you would hit proceed to the benefit calculation. And so once again, you'll see here that we've created a stream of benefits out of those 2 years of data. And so we have our diversion potential in terms of our truck miles, our freight rate savings, the congestion savings, and then the emissions, the road maintenance, and the safety. So those are the benefit categories that this has been estimating. Okay. And then proceed to your benefit cost. And so once again, this is where you could enter in your cost data. I see that we have an error, and I think it's because when I tested this, I tested it with the statistical life. Let's see if that, yeah, so see, that should have just been reporting a 0 instead of an arrow in the value there. And the same thing probably for the emissions. No, the emissions is reporting the 0. Okay, we'll have to see what's going on here. This should just be filling in a 0, so I'll just have to change that to fill in a 0. But once we get that fixed, that's the only thing. Anytime you have one that's returning an arrow instead of a 0, then that's going to knock off any other calculations that you have. That'll be an easy fix. So I'll get that fixed, and I'll get that reloaded and let you guys know when that's reloaded. But then that would give you your benefit cost. And then in terms of your reports, once again, we have the project parameter, which are the project type, and then the primary assumptions that were used, and then once again, the summary of your benefit cost.
Hey, Paula, does this assignment model do a all or nothing type of switch, or is it has some?
No, it does not do an all or nothing. So it actually looks at, again, the different commodities have a different share, and so we've looked at kind of the national share of those commodities that move via rail versus truck. And so we've used that as kind of the upper limit. So if you have a high level of diversion, then those commodities would shift to meet the national average.
Okay.
Unless you're already over the national average, then it wouldn't change. If it's a moderate, then it would get you within the national average. I don't have all of the specifics. I'm actually having them write up our modeling. I needed our modeling folks to write up the methodology on that because they're the ones who actually ran that. And so you guys, I do still owe you the user's guide, and it'll combine the first section chapter of that will be the methodology, and it will explain kind of what's behind that diversion spreadsheet, because that's the main function. And I just realized last week that I hadn't had them write that up yet, so I've asked them to do so, and they're working on it.
Okay. Well, no, I'm just curious how you handle that.
Yeah. So again, Bruce, as you know, having been involved in some of these projects, that can be a very resource-intensive, data-intensive process to really look at truck-to-rail diversion on a specific project. So this is that kind of high-level screening that gives you the potential universe, and it doesn't say a whole lot. It doesn't go in and really do the more detailed competitive lane-by-lane analysis. So really using some kind of rule of thumbs based upon total distance and then based upon the commodity and the mode shares by commodity.
Okay.
Hey, Paul, if you're going to make a change, can I request too that the part where you give it a name and everything and then it saves it automatically to a different file to keep the original clean?
We have not done, I mean, to be quite honest, we spent about 4 times what the budget was on this project already. And so I think we got to the benefit cost portion of this. And so we haven't added in, to go in and add in all the additional macros for the economic modeling. And that's where the save function was. We just didn't have the resources to continue to build this out to that extent.
Okay.
Okay, so we could do, another example here. So if you wanted to do a new intermodal yard, because there are more public sector involvement in that, select the potential for truck to rail diversion. Let's say this is going to be a big hub intermodal yard, so maybe there's some moderate potential there. And this time, let's say you guys in Mississippi, you're finally going to get that, or let's see. Finally going to get that one down in the Hattiesburg area. But it's not going to open up, let's say, until 2021. And your growth rate here, let's say the port's being really bullish, so it's going to be 3%. And we can go ahead and do the benefit calculation. And so once again, the diversion potential, the freight savings, the congestion savings. Then you put in your cost that you would have up there. Okay. Like I said, it's pretty simple and pretty straightforward. There is some a lot of the hard work and everything was really done before and it's just imported into this tool. So it's not forcing the tool itself to run through all of those calculations every time. And again, I know that we had discussed also the potential to put in at-grade crossing, but it was decided as a group that the FRA already has that free online tool, and so you're probably better off, particularly if you're going to be applying for federal grants, to use a federal tool. And so the group decided that we would focus on these 3 categories of rail investment. All right. So with that, the one thing that I did want to ask, I was going to follow up with Sheldon and ask him about the level of effort to create that automated population for the shift input script. Is that something you guys think you would find useful?
Paul, I think the script would be useful because again, the more I'm going through this, I see where that modal diversion piece will be really interesting for some of these projects that people are putting out.
Okay, those are a little unrelated, but we can do the script.
No, I'm just thinking through, Paul. Everybody's got all these grants, and we got all this stuff going on, and I'm sitting there looking at the stuff I'm doing on the inland rural economic development stuff for the Canyon Barge, and now that I see what the feed rail model is, there's some things I could use that for. I see where people are looking at their grant program, and I'm doing all this Tableau data integration where I see some of the stuff I'm doing could be tied into some of the stuff y'all are doing. So this is the first time I've really kind of looked at what y'all have done since Savannah, and I see where there's a lot of cross points with a lot of different projects going on. So it's going to take me a day to really kind of find all those crosswalks and get them together.
Okay. All right. So I think that based upon kind of my notes that I've been taking, we've got that one thing here, that one formula that I need to look at here, see what it's doing in these areas on the benefit cost analysis sheet, and then get the user guide completed and posted for you guys on the rail model. And those are kind of the notes, and then I'll check in with Sheldon just to see what kind of level of effort it would require to do that automate. And if it's something reasonable, then I'll ask him to go ahead and do that. Any other questions or comments? All right, Bruce, I can turn it over to you.
Well, I mean, the most important thing for me, Paul, is now that we've got the files and you fixed up all the scripts that you had problems with from Savannah, and we've gotten the written methodology, I know for myself I'm going to run through all of them now, so for the next call I'll have some more specific points, and I'll actually probably next week when you come up for air, you and I should probably have a discussion about finding a way to have a final meeting that we, towards the end of August, that we say as a closeout meeting, and be done with it. So something that we talked about earlier this morning.
Okay.
And does the states have anything else they want to ask at this point in time? Trong, thank you for your comments. They're very, very good. And if not, I'll go ahead and close this out, and I'll post the materials on the ITTS website and send out the links.
Okay. And Trong, just from Mississippi, Remy and I, we're going to continue. I mean, we'll probably have a couple more back and forth because I really don't see a reason why, they shouldn't be able to fix that. And it may be that, as long as you guys are okay with it, it might be easier. I've been just sharing the actual script from the macro itself, but it might be easier if I actually shared the whole worksheet with them to see if they can come up with an automated loop script that would be a good workaround, because the states are using different base year in REMI, and so I think that's one of the concerns and one of the reasons why the original automated fix that they sent over didn't work.
Okay, sounds good.
But certainly, if we can work with them to get that fixed, that's a simple fixing of a macro, and it wouldn't impact anything else in the. It would just impact the fact that you guys would no longer have to manually do that fix. But in the interim, we do have a way for you to still use the tool, so it's not preventing you from doing that.
Yeah. So Louisiana is not experiencing the same issue.
I'm sorry?
So Louisiana is not experiencing the same issue?
Well, I don't know. We haven't been able to get files from Louisiana to test any of their stuff. So, so if they do test it and have the same issue, then I can work with them on that.
All right, thanks.
Tom, I do have a note. Is Tom McQueen on?
Yeah, sorry, I was on mute.
Okay. I did have from the work that I did had a previous version of the GDOT REMI model, so I was able to import the sheets and they ran fine and everything, and I got output.
Awesome. I'm most curious, just me talking. I know we're all in infogrant mode right now, and all this whole tool is just sitting here waiting for me to just jump on it, to use it, try to show it off. Output in some of our infogrants that we're putting together here. So perfect timing. Thank you.
All right.
Well, thank you, Paula.
Okay, thank you. And I appreciate everyone's patience. I know this has taken longer, but sometimes these spreadsheet tools and all, it becomes a rabbit hole trying to figure out what's going on, and it's not as easy and apparent as you think it might be. In development, I should know by now you always give yourself a little bit of contingency there. But I appreciate everyone's patience and the input and your assistance as we've gone back and forth with some files.
Okay, well, everybody, again, Paul, I look forward to doing this again later in the week, and I'll consolidate everything into a single web page and send it out to everybody. And if there's any updates you're doing on your web page, just let me know so I can keep track of it.
Okay, I will. I'll just send a note out, Bruce, and you can send it out to everyone anytime that anything gets changed or updated.
Yeah, I just want to try to keep everything in one folder just because it'd be a lot easier for people to keep track of all that.
I agree, and I'll try to, if a new version of something goes up, I'm going to delete the old version so that we don't run into, because I know that's one of the issues that I kept having is I was naming my files too closely together and I was having some version control issues. So.
Okay, well, no problem. Thank you, Paula.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, you guys. Thank you.